Most players think T-side is about rushing sides or out-aiming CTs, but if that was true, pro games would be over in 30 seconds every round. Modern Counter-Strike has moved on from the times of learned strategies where all players just go to one side of the map, line up their nades, rush the side and hope the strategy works out well against every opponent. Throughout the years, we have found that while it works well sometimes, it isn't the approach that is flexible enough to be effective against every playstyle. Teams can flank you by the time you are ready to throw your nades, or the side you are attacking can be fully stacked with CTs, and at that point, you're just kinda gambling your fate. Nowadays, your chances of winning depend on something that might seem much simpler at first glance, but the truth is, it is the hardest skill to master in Counter-Strike. It depends on how good you are at defaulting. But what even is defaulting really? And why is it the most difficult thing to become great at? Today I'm going to walk you through all levels of defaulting and show you how advanced this seemingly simple concept really can be at the highest levels. If you have ever felt lost on T-side, this video will fix that. So the simplest version of a default is where all players simply spread out all around the map. You can think of it as the initial layout of a chessboard. This is of course different on every map, but for most, the general approach is similar. What defines the game is what moves you and your opponent make and what your reactions are going to be. So the goal is to occupy space and gather information without taking fights immediately and without committing. This is the simplest and crucial explanation of the default, and it's also the reason why it is the most effective playstyle even through decades of refinement of how Counter-Strike is played. The without committing here is crucial, and it hints on the first mistake we're going to focus on. Since you're spread out, you lose a sense of what your teammates are doing around the map, and this is where we hit our first roadblock, which is very common among teams in amateur leagues. When everyone is applying pressure everywhere at once, all it does is create chaos. So much chaos that it is really impossible to actually read the CT's movements, trade your teammates, and even coordinate with your teammates at all. If one guy is taking apps, one guy is taking mid, and two guys working banana, you're so spread out that you can't follow up anywhere. You kill someone on B, well, to group up there is going to take 15 seconds, and by that time, all CTs could have already rotated there. This is the typical solo queue curse, where if no one takes the reign as IGL, all your teammates just run around the map like headless chickens, and the game gets decided on who has better aim. A good default has layers, and sometimes doing less is more. For example, someone shows presence by throwing utility at B, while boiler player patiently waits to hear footsteps or catch rotating CT. And all this happens while another player is in apps ready to react. And this is exactly where we move into level 2. So defaults add flexibility. If you not only spread the risk, but also spread the threat. If it fails, you're still in position to rotate, fake, split, or do a set execute. The main purpose of default is to take map control, not to make 5 kills. Every piece of utility is meant to remove CT options rather than force aim duels that could go either way. Think of it as a small game. There are certain zones on the map which you have to fight over. The more zones you control, your options to make a winning call increase. On the other hand, enemies play with less information and are second-guessing themselves, which makes them more likely to do a mistake. Another benefit of controlling the map is that you are more likely to know where the remaining opponents are, because they literally have less positions to play in, and that makes it way easier for you to predict and read the game. But again, there is a common mistake which we need to overcome in this level, trying to capture new map control without using supporting utility. We call this dry peeking, over peeking, or wide swinging, and it often completely defeats the purpose of a default. There are moments where you can show off your crisp aim and mechanics by good pre-aim or perfect peek. However, know this, you are here to make CTs uncomfortable, and your aim isn't always going to carry you through the default consistently. Using utility is one of those keys in progressing your skill and gaining more elo at an insane pace. A hallmark sign of a strong default is that you see team trading resources for map control, not just trading players. By resources, I mean everything at the team's disposal in a calculated way. Smokes, flashes, mollies, grenades, and of course this does include players as well. But even this can be done in a more nuanced way, in rounds where you are short on economy, as you can try to trade teammates that only have pistols for an advantage in the round. The name of the game here is baiting the opponent to waste more of their resources than you have. If CTs throw smokes, incendiaries and flashes early to take banana, but you successfully defend it by counter util, for example counter molly, that's already a win right there, even without a kill. Unfortunately, a lot of players struggle with realizing when they are in a good position and when they are not. If you know CTs are bleeding a lot of util while you keep yours, that is your winning condition. Try to go for a heavier execute where CTs will be mollied and flashed away to give you an easy entry to the site. So this tip might be a little bit more advanced for this level, but on a map like Inferno it is extremely handy to count the utility. For example, if CTs smoke off Apeks and mid at the start of the round, you know that there is a 1 minute 20 on the clock and there is most likely only one smoke on A left. That is already a great piece of information that could make you attack A without causing too much resistance from CTs. You can spot these patterns on every map, but the point is to actually act upon them quickly. I'm not saying you should just press W and hope for the best, but exploiting patterns in the default rounds makes a huge difference. And one of the biggest mistakes that I see at this level is that players don't react fast enough to the point where they become predictable. Showing presence too long in one spot and then committing anyway can lead you to running into a stack. This is where the magic word of timing comes into play. So if you feel like you lost the timing, defaulting might feel useless, but in reality you only failed a final part of the round where you got outmaneuvered. That's fine because level 4 will eliminate just that. Good default is not measured with the amount of kills. I'd say that forcing movement is a hidden metric that tells you if your default is solid. Here is mantra to keep in mind. If CTs rotate, they leave gaps. If they don't rotate, they burn utility. Both outcomes favor T side. A simple smoke or flash can force a rotation, even if no one commits. You kind of set yourself up for a tactical warfare, which all of you know under the word fakes. You make yourself known in the mid brackets with a heavy take, but in reality you are setting yourself up for a B execute with the majority of your team. Still, to get to the position where you're able to fake, you're going to have to take duels, and the biggest mistake you can make is just taking 50-50 duels when you don't need to. These are the duels in which you don't have any advantage, and it purely relies on who will hit their shot first. But the thing is, if every engagement is a coin flip, you're still essentially just gambling. By this point, you're in level 4. You use tactical elements to increase your chances to win the round, so don't throw it away by taking duels mindlessly. Creating unfair fights is another way how to absolutely embarrass players or teams who might be more skilled than you. And to show you how to create these unfair fights, we have to dive into level 5. Defaults look like basic CS, but that is deceiving. In every default, players are given opportunities to make moves. Small tricks that give you slightest edge to surprise a CT. Not using them is sabotaging your T side. If you watched one game of professional CS, you know what I'm talking about. Good players have hundreds of small gimmicks they use for every map to give them slightest advantage to surprise opponent. Boosts, wallbangs, perfect utility, or powerful double peaks. I want you to use them too, because if your default looks identical every single round, CTs will read it and they will just use moves against you to kill you. It works both ways. And if you don't know these gimmicks, don't worry. There are some great tools that can help you with that, and one of them is Refrag. It gives you a crazy amount of different drills, from pre-fire to simulating and execute. You have to defend, and yes, we also can create an empty server where you can prepare moves carefully to later use it in your defaults. Load up your own server in the browser, set a nadir scenario, and connect to the IP. Here you can fly around, test grenades, add bots to try boosts, wallbangs, and anything that comes to mind. For example, I'm unsure where to stand exactly to do the silent boost, which is a new one, into the window. All I have to do is spawn a bot by typing .bot, come to the position, type .boost, and try it out. I need to make him stand in a slightly different position. I just adjust and type .boost again. Really, this allows you to get creative, and honestly, every pro player spends hours on empty server just finding and practicing new things to gain an edge. So yeah, if you're not using these tools, you're kind of like slowing down your own progress. You can try this out with code STYKO for free trial, see if you like it without committing, but that feeling when you win a round because of a move you drilled 30 times before the game is just too good. So I'm sure it will keep you coming back once you realize how much fun it adds to the game. Now that you know how to practice them, let's talk about when to use them. The easiest condition for a move starts in freeze time, your spawn point. If you have a good spawn, especially with an AWP, you have a variety of low-risk, high-reward plays that you can use. Even on Inferno, which is naturally known to be terrible for AWPers. For example, getting aggressive on logs to catch CTs trying to take banana. Or speeding up middle to post up on this angle early into the round. Same can be applied to any other role. You should just be master of your position, get creative and have a variety of ways to take your part of the map, or have tricks like boosts or wallbangs ready. But be careful, doing these moves are exponentially more successful if you do them with your teammates. Doing moves doesn't mean solo plays. The most common mistake of this level is playing the entire game on autopilot, doing the same thing every round. Your decision needs to make sense in the context of what happened in rounds prior and shape your game on smartly reading your opponent's moves before they even do them. But pros actually do even more. Rather than trying to predict what the opponent will do, they try to force their hand using conditioning. This is where true masterclass of defaulting hides. By conditioning, you're creating a potential threat that you can but don't need to use. Throwing a top mid smoke every gun round denies the information, but you can explode through it, fade it, or simply ignore it at any given moment to keep CTs guessing. If CTs always take banana early with heavy utility, leave it and take middle instead. If they always rotate in mid pressure, go back to retake banana. We're applying all the levels in some way here. Now, this is obviously impossible in a simple face-it game where chaos thrives, but in a team practice or match, the team that is better at conditioning will most likely win the game, unless there is a clear individual skill difference. And don't worry, even best teams in the world overcook it sometimes. Unless you're able to read the minds, you will most likely do the wrong call or read, but that doesn't mean you should be scared to dip your toes into this level. I would love to say practice makes perfect, but in reality, no one is perfect. You can only gain experience to be more likely to abuse things you see. However, there are rare moments that everything feels flawless, and that is why we go into the level 7, where I will break down a round from Furia against Navi, where we try to spot every single thing we learned in this video. To tie everything together, I want to show you this single round from a professional game, and your task will be slowly notice all of the levels we went through in this video. As a little help, I will include small checklist on your screen for a little guidance. It all starts with Furia dividing into 3 distinct groups. Trio of Yuri, Serato and Moldo are going to brawl for banana. Fallen is trailing as he is responsible for supporting utility. In this round, Yekindar is alone to control second mid and Apeks. They spread out with clear intention, do a default centered around banana fight. Furia is using 3 mollies to control banana, 1 towards car, 1 towards pool, and lastly, when Moldo is boosted on logs with an AWP, they molly sandbags to make sure that banana is taken. However, because Makaza actually played here, he was forced out and Moldo's smart move is awarded with an entry. That leads to Furia to slow down and release the pressure towards banana for a bit. Their initial plan worked brilliantly and it's time to think of a way how to use the advantage. After this, CTs used to third smoke towards banana and their bleeding utility. This is a huge win for Furia already and they understand there is no need to hurry, because as the round progresses, their advantage will only increase. Notice that while his teammates are blocked on banana, Yekindar uses this time to throw a small fake towards middle. Might look harmless, but it forces Bit to throw a molly and reveals his position briefly. The decision to go back and retake top banana also makes sense. Even though they made a kill there, they lost that map control, and before they make a final call, they want to regain it. Notice how they don't just blindly walk into the zone, they use another move, which is a boost at the half wall, and Moldoy also throws an entry flash. It wasn't as clean and Alexei got the kill, but Fallen recovers and trades right after. It's time for a killing blow. Yekindar smartly gathers information on A that CTs use last smoke and Apeks. This is enough for him to identify the gap that A is weak and most likely guarded by only one player, who plays passively. Now it's all about numbers, and thanks to Furia's well-played default, they are in man advantage storming into an empty site. They cut off any rotation by smoking long and moto and comfortably secure the afterplant. If your T sides feel inconsistent, stop rushing, stop forcing fights and start controlling the map. If this helped you in any way, please leave a like, subscribe for more CS2 breakdowns, and let me know which topic I should cover next. See you, bye bye. Shout out to you, all of my Patreons and Coffee members, for your continual support. It allows me to create more content like this. Your name is on the screen right now as a little token of appreciation. I used Coffee for years, where you can find extra content and perks at various tiers of membership, but due to popular demand, I set up Patreon too. Nothing changes, both platforms are treated equally, with same contents just for your convenience to use whichever site you prefer. Thank you for making my videos better and possible.